I'd like to welcome you guys to this week's report. Today is Thursday, last Thursday in September. Don't remember the exact date, but it's nice to see fall starting to come around here. We're getting a little bit different weather in the mornings. Overcast, cool, still hot during the day, but not as hot. Might be a little bit of sprinkles this weekend in some areas, I don't know. Weatherman is calling for it. I really haven't been too thoroughly checking the weather. Looks like, well, the rain anyway. The weather looks fine in most areas. Got a lot going on. We have a wrap up of War Heroes on the water. We have some stuff happening inshore and offshore, and a bunch of stuff to talk about. So let's go to the map. Starting up at the Channel Islands, they're starting to get some sea bass again. Based on the lunar cycle I talked about last week, I think we're getting to a full moon right now, or pretty close to it. Probably why those sea bass are showing up again, and not the huge numbers, not the real big ones either, but you know, they're getting a pretty good pick on some decent grade fish. I know the Aloha Spirit's been catching them. They're also catching some nice bass up there, the occasional halibut, and those bluefin are still biting for those boats up there. It's not every day that they're seeing them or getting them to bite, and it's not every one that they're hooking or catching either. I mean, they're having some heartbreaks sometimes, because a lot of the guys that go up there just really aren't geared for that kind of stuff. But still have a shot up there for that. Probably still have a shot for marlin and swordfish up there as well. Again, I don't really see that bite tapering off anytime soon unless we get some major weather coming through, but we'll see how that goes. Heading down to Clemente. Haven't talked about that a lot lately because it's been closed. Nobody's really been fishing it. I intended to fish it during the War Heroes on Water, but we ended up taking a different route, which I'll talk about in a little bit. But my friend Benny Florentina was over there, I think yesterday, had good calico bass fishing, and also found some nice grade of bluefin right outside of Northwest Harbor on the way home. I saw him casting them with the wrong gear, and I don't know if he hooked any or not, but I hope he didn't for his sake, because that looked like it'd be pretty miserable. Some of the boats that fished the War Heroes fished the island as well, caught some nice calico bass, a few halibut, rockfish, things like that. I'm sure that island's going to be biting. It normally, you know, as far as Clemente goes now until through like November is my favorite time of year to fish here. You get the calmer winds in the afternoon, sometimes you get Santa Ana's. Makes for a better run there and back, and yeah, it usually stays pretty stable out there, and you've always got a shot at catching some tuna when you're running home from there. Catalina, calico bass are biting for private boaters. My buddy Jerry Mayhew of All Harbors Charters was out there a couple days ago, had a nice calico bass for his clients, stuff like that. There's some yellows around there as well. I know that during the War Heroes, Dave Hansen and Bill DePriest were on a boat called Joint Venture. They had both yellows and sea bass on the backside of the island. There's some halibut around there. We ended up fishing rockfish on the backside on day 2 of our trip on War Heroes, and really loaded up on a nice grade of reds and other good rockfish, and you know, 500 plus feet of water. So really some good fishing to be had out there. And I talked about a few weeks ago about that little electric reel that Bobby Martinez said I picked up a couple of those. They're Daiwa Seaborg 400Js. They're from the Japan domestic market. So you got to order them from Japan, but they're the size of a 400 bait caster, and they hold, I don't know, at least 500 plus yards of 30-pound braid. So makes deep water cod fishing so easy now. I mean, it's just almost ridiculous. Drop it down, get a couple bites, throttle it up, sit back, and have a cup of coffee while it reels in your rockfish for you. But yeah, really good rock fishing there. See, I was going to head offshore, but before I do that, I want to talk a little bit about what happened with us at War Heroes on Water. And overall, War Heroes on Water was a great success. They had, I think, 40-something boats. Good turnout, over 100 vets they took out. Some of the boats had real nice bluefin tuna. Some had yellowfin tuna. Some had rockfish like us, but that's a longer story. We were on the playing hooky, as I mentioned, and we had 3 vets with us, and on the first day, on the second day, one of the boats broke down. We ended up with 2 more vets. But our plan was, after leaving Newport Harbor, to run out towards the Clemente Ridge and the 43 to where there had been some fish caught the previous day, larger fish. And they have points for different species. So we were hoping to go out and get a big bluefin early and then go look for yellowfin or other things like that. Got out to the area where the fish had been. Didn't really mark any bait, mark any fish. Got there about, I don't know, 11:30 at night. Drove around looking for bait and fish until dawn on the sonar and on the up and down. Never really saw nothing. It was a real long night. Waited through dawn, started to see a little bit of sign come together. One of the boats in the area hooked a fish, but it just really petered out after they got light and didn't really look like anything. We weren't marking bait, we weren't marking anything. So we decided to make a run up to the 289, and when you're a 10-knot boat, that takes quite a while. But we headed up that way, and there ended up being some of the other boats from the tournament were fishing up above there, and they had yellowfin on dolphin and small spots of bluefin around. And by the time we got up there, it had to have been noon or later. There was really a lot of boats on it, so we found some dolphin that we could catch fish off and catch fish off, have to ourselves for a little bit, and actually had fish up boiling around the boat and stuff. After a few spots like that, we finally got bit. These were smaller yellowfin, 30 pounds or smaller, I would say on average, and they weren't really biting real well, so we dropped down a 20-pound line. And my friend Steve Stillings, one of the vets who I fished with in Mag Bay a few years ago, ended up hooking probably an 80 to 90-pound bluefin on 20-pound. And as you can imagine, that was a long and lopsided battle that ended up with the fish breaking him off on the right below color. The fish swung under the boat, and he couldn't get the rod around the pulpit fast enough. And the fish broke off the line on the anchor that was hanging down from the bottom of the pulpit. Real heartbreaker, but yeah, still exciting to have that opportunity for those guys. A few stops later, we hooked the fish on 40-pound and had the owner's circle hook break, which was unusual. It wasn't a very light wire hook, but it was pretty surprising. I've never seen it happen before. Brand new hook too, just bad timing. Later in that day, around 3 o'clock, we started finding some spots of yellowfin up in the same zone. And the key to all that is just being in binoculars, have somebody in binoculars. I was up on the upper deck, which gave me a little bit longer field of view. But on private boaters, you can do it from water level. You don't need to look that far, just look intently. And what you're looking for in all these cases is turns. There are lots of dolphins up there, spots of dolphin, but if they did not have turns on them, they did not seem to have fish on them. And there was also turns just flying around freely up there, and they were on those open water yellowfin and bluefin. So we ended up not getting any. We ran back to Avalon that night, got on a mooring can, got some rest, and the next morning we got up and all of our bait was dead, basically. One of the problems I've noticed on a few different yachts I've fished on, and this is something you can keep in mind on your own boat, if you have a lot of bait dying off, if when you're idling or running normally in your boat, if there are small bubbles coming up in your bait tank, almost like a seltzer water or something like that, sporadically, that will kill your bait. May not seem obvious that would, but that aerated water is not good for them. It loosens their scales and makes them die. That's caused most likely by a pinhole leak in one of your bait lines. And while that pinhole leak may not be dripping, it's sucking air in. And that air gets in there, aerates the salt water you're pumping through there, gets the bait all screwed up, makes it hard for them to breathe, knocks their scales off, and you end up with dead bait. So if you have that problem, I would replumb your bait system, or look for a crack on the housing of your bait pump, which is always a potential thing there. So without bait, we didn't really have too many options. We decided to go rock fishing outside of the 300-foot depth restriction, and that was really good. We had cow cod, which we had to let go, a bunch of big reds, some of those Mexican reds, which I'm not a fan of, Floridas, which are a type of bank perch, and a bunch of other stuff. And the guys had a blast catching them. And it was just a really great day and a great tournament for everybody involved. But the boats that, we'll just turn to our offshore thing. The boats that did the best on the big bluefin all fished out of Cherry or Tanner Banks. That zone out there is biting, and as far as heck though. And some of the boats that were out there that got fish, that they had 5 or 6 fish on kite fish by like 9:30 in the morning. So just like go out there, catch fish, and they had some really good scores out there. I know the Anastasia and the Bad Company and a few other boats were out there, and they did really good. Fantail, I think, and some of the others. But you can go to the War Heroes on Water Facebook page. You can probably see some photos of that whole thing. But sport boats are out there as well. I know the Thunderbird's been going out there on their multi-day trips, at least for part of the trip, and getting those big bluefin. They're fishing balloons from the boat. Your best bet on a private boat is probably fishing a flying fish. This fish are not really showing on the surface or anything you cast lure at. Not that you'd want to cast lure at that great a fish anyway. But if you end up going on a multi-day trip, you can expect to end up out there. I think they're getting fish at night as well. So that's kind of the big fish zone. And some of it's at Cherry Banks. It's just like 120 miles from San Diego, maybe 100 from Long Beach. So, just expect a long boat ride. Closer to home, that area that we were looking at on the Clemente Ridge, had we gone a little further south towards the 43, we would have caught some fish. It's a camp area where it once, but I had a buddy down there, and he got bluefin and yellowfin on Sunday as well. And same guys from Diversion Fishing that I talked about last week. They were down there. There's fish, like I said, between the islands. Benny had the big bluefin up off Northwest Harbor yesterday. All that yellowfin and bluefin was like between the 289 and cat. I talked to Andrew Sherritt. I'm not sure if I'm saying his last name right, but he went out over the weekend, had limits of bluefin outside the 267, all on service iron and stuff like that, up on foamers, It's just finding the right fish. I know there's been fish on the dolphin and stuff like that. And, I talked to Mitch on the blackfish, and again, I'm going to pump those guys as operation because they're my friends, but they've just been on them every single day, it seems like, and they've got it really dialed in. And if you're looking to go on a 6-pack boat for that mid-sized grade fish and not have to drag a kite around, I recommend those guys. They're getting a lot of those fish on poppers, on those dolphin schools. Just fishing a popper through there, and also getting them on bait. And speaking of poppers, my buddy Jonathan's been just going everywhere on his new boat lately. He's got that new World Cat, and after sitting out most of the summer, he went out, I think, on a Friday or Saturday and texted me that he found some real big ones outside the shipping lanes and too big to land, and we didn't get a chance to look at that zone, but he went out, I think, the next day or Sunday or Monday and got a bunch of nice yellowfin on the popper, Halco popper. Pretty standard presentation he's been using since these things came around here, and it still works all the time. You find dolphin, work that popper through them, or find terns, they're looking at stuff, yellowfin. A lot of times the yellowfin will bite the popper even if they're not foaming on the surface. So if you can find an area that's got some birds on yellowfin or dolphin or even a shiner, you can throw a popper in front of those things, they'll come up and eat it. Bluefin most of the time won't do that on breezers and stuff, but yellowfin seem to be a little more cooperative. Yeah, a lot of good stuff. And like I said, we got some sprinkles in the forecast for this weekend. Might be raining pretty heavy in certain areas, maybe not at all in others. Something to keep in mind if you're heading out on your own boat and you're launching it out of anywhere from Long Beach to Newport Beach. They got that Huntington Beach Air Show this weekend, and that launch ramp is going to be a bit of a zoo by the time that thing ends. So if you're going out, I would try and be back before the show ends and all the drunk ding-dongs come in and try and dock their boats and crash into each other and all that nonsense, which is, I've seen that before, and it's not really fun to be a part of. Yeah, I don't know if I'm going to fish this weekend or not. I injured my leg a few weeks ago, and it's after 4 days on the water, it's my dogs are barking for sure. But who knows? I may go out Saturday morning and figure something out. I guess that's it. Hope you guys all have a great weekend, and good luck if you fish.